This happened about 3 years ago in college. I worked at a GameStop near my school that was situated inside of a mall. Working as a young female in a GameStop is almost as you might expect, talked down to and flirted with, but since all my managers were grown men that were super cool and amazing, I did not worry much at all as they shut down any issues or took problem cases. This one guy was a bit different of a case. It was sometime in the fall near the end of my shift with my manager. At 8:30 p.m. a guy walks in and starts looking around. I don't mind him, and since we close at 9 p.m., I was organizing the shelves and displaying while my manager was behind the counter. It was about 5 minutes when I caught sight of the guy behind me just staring at me. I assumed I was in the way and moved to the other side of the store to clean. It was a decent sized store. I moved from the Xbox One station to the PS4 station. Then he was behind me again, not saying anything or doing anything, just there, looking at me, but not trying to look like he was looking at me. I muttered an excuse me and moved again. PS4 was in the back of the store, so I moved up front to the collectibles. It was 8:45 and he was behind me again. By this point even my manager noticed, but due to our store being under constant stress from our district manager, we didn't want to start an issue. I kept cleaning and ignoring the guy lingering around. 9 p.m. hits and I think finally this guy will leave. Yeah, no, not really. When cleaning rolls around, we can't right up tell shoppers to leave because it's bad service. So my manager politely asks if the guy needs anything or is ready to be checked out because we are closing soon. The guy mutters something and leaves without making a purchase. Thinking it's the end, we close and lock the doors, and we have a good chuckle about the weirdo. I start to vacuum and the manager counts the registers. As I'm vacuuming, I notice movement from outside the glass storefront, and the guy is fucking there, looking at me. When he sees I see him, he walks away. For 10 minutes, the guy paces the front of the store. Now I'm officially skeeved and my manager, soft giant bear of a man, is pissed. He tells me to go in the back. Don't gotta tell me twice. I stay by the door to hear and watch the interaction on the security feed. Can I help you, sir? We are closed, my manager says with the most intimidating voice I have ever heard in my life. I want to talk to the girl. This guy's voice was even more intimidating despite being smaller than my manager. I was afraid for my manager for a second. She doesn't want to talk to you. You have to leave or I'll call security. They bicker for a while longer about wanting to talk to me before he leaves. After work, my manager walked me to the train station and made me keep in contact with him until I was on the train. Apparently, the guy came back a couple of times during my days off and asked about me, and my manager told him off until he never came back. Don't know if he was banned or what. Definitely one of my weirder work situations. So GameStop guy, let's not meet again. I remembered something that happened to my best friend and I a few years ago, and I figured I might share it here. While my best friend and I were seniors in high school, we went on a weekend trip to visit my grandmother a couple of hours away from my town in Georgia, United States. The town we lived in was comparatively small for the state, but one of the biggest towns within a few hours. But we had to travel about 2.5 hours through tiny, somewhat redneck towns to get to my grandmother's place. We were on our way back home when we had to stop at a gas station literally in the middle of nowhere. I'm talking cornfields, cotton fields, streets with no signs or lights, not even stop signs, and definitely no cell service. The convenience store attached to the gas station had maybe a couple of snacks inside, but looked deserted from the outside. And we didn't bother to get anything other than gas. I paid with card mainly because I didn't want to leave my 5'1", 100-pound friend alone in the car while I went inside alone. Another car pulled up on the other side of the single gas pump while I was just starting to pump gas, and because of everything I had read on the subreddit, I already had a weird feeling and decided to stay alert and stand outside of the car with my driver's side door open so my friend could see and hear everything going on. A thin, late 50-ish older man got out of his car. and seemed to be paying at the pump and standing beside his car while he got gas. But after a few seconds, he walked around the pump and maneuvered himself around my car door to stand within front of me and asked if he could pump my gas for me. Luckily, the gas nozzle was locked, so it was pumping without me having to hold it, and I immediately placed myself between the opening door and the man and prepared to either shut the door with me inside it or move and slam it behind me to protect my friend if necessary. I calmly told him it was fine, no thank you. He looked at me up and down with the corner of his lip tilted up and said,
"Pretty girls like you shouldn't be out here all alone, and you definitely shouldn't have to do this by yourself. Let a man help you, baby,"
and covered my hand with his own as he reached for the gas pump I was holding. I jerked my hand out from underneath his and slammed my car door shut. My usual overly polite demeanor turned serious as I remembered something that I had read here that said it was better to be safe and to seem mean rather than be polite and uncomfortable. So I responded and said, "Sir, get away from me. I can pump my own gas, and I have already said no thank you. Leave us alone." He did not move, only raised his chin and managed to make eye contact with me. I stared him down and figured I'd gotten enough gas to last us enough time to get the hell out of wherever we were, so I maintained eye contact, pulled the nozzle out, and basically threw it back onto the pump before getting in my car and drove away before he had even moved. As I drove away, I glanced in the rear view and saw this car wasn't even being filled up with gas, telling me he was driving by and decided to help, quote-unquote, a damsel in distress out. My friend was shaking the whole way home, telling me she would just let the man pump her gas. But I'm just glad some of the confidence I'd gained from this sub helped me stay attentive and respond confidently enough to get out of the situation. So creepy gas station man in the middle of Ghost Town, Georgia, let's not meet again. This happened when I first started university. My first day moving into student hall, I was greeted by a very friendly guy called Dominic. He was very camp and told me he was gay early in the conversation, but I didn't have a problem with that. He offered to help me unpack in my room, then go for a drink with me. Although I thought this was a little over-familiar, I was delighted that I had made a new friend so quickly and accepted his offer. He put a tremendous amount of effort in helping me put everything in the appropriate place in my room. We then went for a drink at the student bar. I made a point to tell him I was straight, as I suspected he might have a bit of a crush on me, hence why he was being so nice. However, he didn't show any signs of dismay and continued chatting to me. I liked him a lot. He was very intelligent and interesting to talk to. I was very pleased that I had a new friend already. I was worried that I'd be lonely in the uni dorms. He didn't live in the same building as me. He just lived across. I was studying creative writing, and he was studying business, but we started to hang out a lot. Although I liked Dominic, I did start to find him a little overbearing. He would send me texts and messages on Facebook all the time, and he would get upset if I did not reply, even if it went only for about 5 minutes. He would always want to know what I was doing, and if I disappeared off Facebook for a while, he would want to know where I'd been all day. One time, I even sent him a text mentioning I was on a train, and he texted me back, "Why are you on a train? Why am I not invited to wherever you are going?" I made quite a few friends, and he would always show visible signs of displeasure whenever they were around, and whenever I talked to him about them, he would tell me he disliked them, and that I shouldn't trust them. He was very possessive, and I personally can't stand clingy friends. So I tried to distance myself from him a bit, but the more I pulled away, the tighter he held. I still hung out with him, and still cared about him, but I was starting to worry about where this friendship was going. I was pretty sure that this guy had a crush on me, and soon my suspicions were confirmed. I met this girl at a party that I went to called Anna, and asked her on a date. She accepted. I was really thrilled and told Dominic about it. The second I told him, his face fell. "Why are you going on a date with her?" he asked, sounding very worried. Because I want to," I said. "But I'm going to be jealous," he said. "Please don't go. It'll really hurt me. You wouldn't want to hurt me. I'm your best friend." I'd never actually told him he was my best friend before, and I found the way he was acting now both annoying and a little creepy. "I'm sorry, but I told you that I was straight before, Dominic," I said. "We can still be friends, but I'm not going to stop dating just for you." He remained sulky and miserable the rest of the night. I told myself that he'd have to accept it or get over it, but when I was on the date with Anna, I kept getting phone calls from unknown numbers. I answered first, but I couldn't hear anything on the other end. It was just as though someone was listening. I started to ignore the calls, but you would not believe how frequently they were coming in. They were coming in non-stop, and I couldn't even tell the time because they seriously would not stop. I had to put my phone on airplane mode. After about an hour of my phone in airplane mode, I switched airplane mode off. But the very second I did, the calls came in again. Although I was unnerved, I enjoyed my date with Anna, and we agreed to meet up again. When I got home from the date, Dominic was waiting right outside my dorm, his phone in his hand. Anna had no mutual connections with Dominic, so I asked him how he could possibly know about this. He just told me he had done his research. I was angered and told him it was none of his business and that I'd find out myself. He started crying, saying how he was just worried about me, and stormed off. I think he was hoping that I'd follow him, but I didn't. And when I went to my room, angry that he would try to interfere with my life like this, I've had unrequited crushes on friends before, but if they don't feel the same, I never try to force it, but Dominic only got worse. When I got back to my student room, Dominic had sent me screenshots on Facebook of a conversation he allegedly had with Anna. The messages showed her boasting to him about how she was using me and how she was planning to break my heart. Obviously, this didn't ring at all true. As one, how would she even know who Dominic was and why would she message him? And two, why would she tell a friend of mine so openly what her plans for me were, when he would obviously show me? I demanded that he showed me the conversation from Anna on his computer screen with me there, but he told me that he had deleted the conversation because they were too upsetting for him to read. I knew right then and there that Dominic was deliberately trying to ruin my relationship with Anna through incredibly deceitful and despicable means, and I told him that I wasn't interested in him, that I would never be, and that he'd better stop right now. He told me that I was being a terrible friend, that all he was trying to do was look out for me, and that he could not believe that I was believing a stranger over him. I was seriously pissed off with the way he was selfishly trying to manipulate me now, and blocked him on social media. He started sending me constant texts and calling me nonstop every day, telling me things like he was so depressed over me, and that he had started taking heroin, and that he was contemplating suicide, basically trying to make me worry. He would also constantly send me texts saying he knew Anna was cheating on me, and that I had to come to my senses. He was creeping me out so much that I went to stay with my parents for a bit, as I wasn't comfortable living in the same area as him. I had to block his number because the phone calls were so constant. People from my uni dorm were sending me angry messages because Dominic had told them a really twisted version of what was going on, making them think that Anna was a dirty, STD-ridden whore who I had betrayed him for. It then turned out that he had been lying to everyone, telling them that me and him were in a romantic sexual relationship, and that I had cheated on him with Anna, then left him for her. I furiously set everyone straight, told them that I had never been in a relationship with Dominic and that everything he had told them about Anna was bullshit. Most people believed me, although it took a while to convince everyone that Dominic was the liar. He was very manipulative, and although a lot of his lies were ludicrous, he was very good at making himself sound legit. I decided to go back to my uni dorm after a while, as it was inconvenient for me to stay at my parents' house while at uni. Their house was far away from it. I arrived back there quite late, as I really did not want to run into Dominic. I was so angry about him. I had a new girlfriend and studies to think about, yet because of his obsession and harassment, he was now all I could think about. In a very twisted way, I think this is what he really wanted. Positively or negatively, he wanted me thinking about him. When I got back, I just laid down on my bed, thinking about what to do, when suddenly, smash! A brick came flying through my window. I jumped a mile and rolled over the side of my bed, hiding, thinking it was burglars coming in or something, but nothing more happened. But once I got over the shock, I cautiously stepped over the broken glass and tried to look out the window. When I got a phone call off of a number I did not recognize, I answered it, and it was Dominic, and you will not believe what he said. "I just saw Anna throw a brick through your window and run," he shouted. "I told you she was bad news. You should have listened to me. I told you." You would not believe the rage I felt. I was so angry I could not even speak for a moment. But then I just exploded. I screamed at him that I knew it was him, and I was calling the police right now. He tried to protest, but I hung up on him and immediately called them. When they arrived, Dominic was not in his room. But when it was opened up, a large stash of illegal drugs was found there. The manager of my student halls assured me that he'd be getting kicked out for this, and the police said they would be getting in touch with him. After this, I never saw Dominic again. I changed my phone number and never unblocked him on social media. A couple times I was tempted to out of sheer curiosity, but decided it wasn't worth it. I think he dropped out of the uni, but I don't know exactly what happened to him. My relationship with Anna didn't last. She was never quite clear on why she ended it, but I actually suspect that Dominic's freakish behavior scared her off. Even though it wasn't my fault, oh well, life goes on. Dominic, I hope whatever issues you're going through, you sort them out. And I hope that you find a guy who actually does want to be with you. But please, let's not meet again. Last year I went out of state for my first year of college to school in India. The first week I formed many friendships, and one of those was with a boy who would end up becoming my stalker. He was fairly normal at the start, and I genuinely enjoyed his company as well as his roommates, and we became quite close, spending a lot of time together. Soon I had developed friendships with other people, and he became a part of my friend group. About a month into knowing him, I started to get a feeling that he liked me more than a friend. I still acted normal around him because I did not want to draw attention to it, because the feeling wasn't mutual, and I did not want to ruin our friendship. One night, about 3 months into school, everything changed. This night, all of my friends came to my dorm room to drink before they went to a party. I had told my friends that they could drink in my room, but I did not want to go out because I was very upset by a hurricane that was hitting my town in Florida. All of my friends were supportive of this, except my soon-to-be stalker. Throughout the time he was in my room, he was making jokes about how dramatic I was being, and even when everyone else told him to stop, he wouldn't let up. Finally, everyone is ready to leave to go to the party. My stalker is the last to exit my room before going. He tells me that he cares about me, and that if I change my mind and decide to go out, or if I need anything, that I should text him, which I found strange given his previous behavior, but I figured he had come to his senses and was attempting to be a good friend. A couple of hours after my friends leave, I get a text from another friend telling me to come help our one friend out who is too drunk and is vomiting. So I change and walk to her building. Upon arriving, I find out she is fine now and that they put her into her bed. I go outside of their building and cry about what's happening at my home on the steps by myself. I get a text from my stalker asking if I had changed my mind. In that moment, I was sad, and I figured if I went out with them and drank, maybe I would feel better. I tell him where I am and ask if the group wants to meet up. He says that they will come, but arrives alone. He suggests we hang out in my room, but I told him I want to go to see the group. He didn't seem to be too happy with this, but I call one of my other friends to see where they are, and we go to another dorm building where they are drinking. When we get inside, we have a hard time figuring out which room they are on, and what floor they are in. My stalker is visibly drunk at this point and pushes me into one of the connecting suites that is vacant. He begins to make fun of me again for being upset and is very touchy. I push him off of me and tell him to stop. We finally find one of our friends, and that friend tells us that we can meet him in his room and he has alcohol there. My stranger suggests that we go to his room instead because he's in a fight with one of the other guys and does not want to see him. I believe this, and I agree. When we get to his room, we are greeted by his roommate and a bunch of his roommate's friends. My stalker grabs my backpack with his alcohol and says we should go to my room and our friend group can meet up with us, so we do. My dorm had 2 beds in it, and my stalker sits down on one of them I sleep on, so I decide to sit on the other one. He puts on a movie, and everything is normal at first. I immediately begin texting my one friend, whose room everyone was in, and tell him to bring our friends over to my room. My friends were all drunk at this point, and everyone I texted wasn't making sense. My stalker then gets into the same bed as me and lays beside me. I immediately feel uncomfortable and start rapidly texting my friends and tell them he is acting strange, and that they need to come now. He sees I'm on the phone a lot, so my stalker grabs my phone from me and tells me I need to take a 10-minute break from the phone. During this point, he becomes very touchy and suggests we try this trick with my jewel where he exhales into my mouth, to which I reject. I tell him it has been 10 minutes and that he needs to give me my phone back, but he denies knowing what I am talking about. I stand up and move to the other bed because I feel uncomfortable. He gets up and moves as well. I sit at the very end of the bed opposite of him and demand my phone. He continues to play dumb. Instead, he moves closer to me and tries to playfully touch me. I've had enough at this point and tell him that he needs to give me my phone right now, and that it isn't funny anymore. He tells me he needs to go to the bathroom. While he's in the bathroom, I grab my laptop and I iMessage one of my friends to come to my room ASAP and to tell them that he is being very creepy and I need their help. Once he returns, he tells me right away that he wants to level with me and that he thinks that we should hook up. I had been making it very clear the entire time that I did not want that, and I thought that he would be able to read my body language in this situation and realize I was very clearly uncomfortable. I tell him no and that I just want to be friends and not ruin the friendship. He doesn't listen. He comes over to me and starts playfully grabbing me, and when I push him off and tell him to stop, he pushes me down onto the bed and tries to come over me. He grabs my legs and pulls me into him. I was thankfully sober and was able to kick him away from me, and I get up and run into the hallway. He doesn't leave my room and begins to insult me and tell me he never wanted to be my friend and only wanted to sleep with me, and that guys and girls can never be friends. It always has to lead to something more. He then says that he would never date me and that I'm too emotionally unstable for him, and a slew of other insults. One thing that he said that especially scares me is that he was raised to take whatever he wants, no matter what, when defending his actions. I did not know what to do and I just started yelling and crying at him to leave my room. He refuses and then makes fun of me for crying. At this point, he still has my phone and won't give it back or leave. I threaten to call the campus police on him if he does not leave, and he finally agrees. After that night, he texted me every day for a week trying to talk to me, and one of my friends told him to listen to what he had to say, so I do. He ended up confessing his love for me and told me that he still thinks we cannot just be friends, even after I said multiple times that that is all we could ever be, and ultimately told him I think that we need to stop talking. All of my other friends knew what had happened and dropped him as well. He spent months trying to talk to me and became completely obsessed. I would still hang out with his roommates, but I would only go to their room when he wasn't there. On the few occasions where he would come in, and he would later text me paragraphs about how immature I was being for ignoring him. Finally, I said we could try to be civil and just be acquaintances to be nice, but that led to him getting very mad at me for still acting uncomfortable around him and never wanting to hang out with him. At this point, every time I would see him, he would blow up my phone and text me nonstop about being fake towards him and that I needed to get over myself. I finally blocked him. After doing this, he got very angry. He would show up where I was all of the time and just stare at me. His roommates would tell me that he talked about me every night basically for the rest of the school year. He would try to ask them things about what I was doing and who I was hooking up with. He would go up to my close girlfriends all of the time and ask what he could do to fix things with me. He tried to fight a guy who expressed he was interested in taking me out on a date. A few months ago, after the incident, he made up an excuse to come to my door almost every day. He started trying to talk to me in the hallways. He would offer me his things and even bought me a Christmas present. The last few months of school, he told his roommate that his goal was to sleep with me before graduation and that he thinks I want him, and I am just playing games with him. I in no way want him, or make it seem as if I want him. The only way I act towards him is completely disgusted. Even over the summer, he has been texting his roommates about me. All of my friends tell me that he is stalking me and recognize that the way I am acting is in no way asking for his attention. I go back to school in the middle of August, and he will be there. He will be living in a frat next year, so I don't have to worry about him being on my floor, but he still worries me. I think something is very wrong with him emotionally or mentally, and not just because of the way he's acted towards me, just in general. I don't want anything to happen to myself or anyone else, and I think I should do something about it. Looking back on that night, I would say his behavior and the things he said were very rapey, and that the people who think if I want something I should take it no matter what are at a higher risk to sexually assault someone. Let me start by saying this small little pretext. I live in a town where there is a certain breed of people, like a mix of rednecks, beach bums, like every town. My last story on here was several years ago, and this story takes place about a year after that story. That story involved a gun in my face. Anyhow, the shenanigans started in Texas, Beach Bum Town. I live in a part that is separated by the highway. One area with middle class and some low class with sporadic bits of high class, and the other side of the highway with low income housing and shanties. The shanty part has had meth labs blow up, houses built out of 2x4s and wood, etc. I was sitting at home, normal day, and I decided to make some tortilla soup, but was missing the damn corn tortillas. I asked my mother, who was sitting on the couch watching another Hallmark show, if I could take her car to get some ingredients, to which she begrudgingly said yes. So I take her car to Big Box grocery store and get some tortillas, and thinking that it was going to be a damn good spicy soup, with that right amount of sauciness and spices, little did I know how spicy it was going to get. I then left the grocery store thinking how good the soup was going to be when my mother called and told me to put gas in her car. I mean, she drives a Ford Focus, doesn't use that much gas, but at least it doesn't take meth, which leads me to my next part. I go to the gas station during the busy part of the day and stood in line for about 15 minutes. I give the lady $15, filled up at the gas station from half a tank, when this lady kept staring at me from behind a gas pump. I was feeling more and more uncomfortable. At the time, I was around 18, and she had to have been in her 50s. She would look at me, smile, then stare more with this drugged out look. Sent shivers down my spine. This continued for about another 5, because the drugged up lady dressed like a high schooler with messed up teeth, and the typical meth head approached me. She said I was hot and put her hand on my chest. I tried to back away from her and was completely getting creeped out, and she would follow me around and wouldn't let me go to my car. I had to converse with her for about 15 minutes. I finally was able to distract her. Then I got into my car and drove home. Crazy methed up lady, let's not meet again. Alright, if you enjoyed the video, go ahead, like, share, subscribe. Thank you for watching.